Hello, Garland Nixon here, and it's just after Easter, and Laith Marouf has made a trip to Galilee. We got plenty to talk about. Hello, can you ever get Laith? We've been struggling a little bit with the
sound is not going through, by the way.
Darn, we've been struggling a little bit here with the sound back and forth. I do not know why, but Laith is we're having some struggles with the sound. You know, I'm going to make an. Here's what I'm going to do. I am going to make an attempt to change microphones and see if that helps. How's that? I'm going to stick with me, everybody. We're working on this. I'm going to change my microphone and see if that helps. Give me a second, everybody. Give me a second. I'm going to see if I change microphones because I just went to a new mic. Let me see something. Oh, settings. All right. And we're going to go here. Can you hear me now, Laith? No?
Yeah, I can hear my own mic, but
Can you hear my mic? Can you hear me? No? Testing 3, 2, 1. We're on the other mic. Sorry about that, you all. We're working on the video's good.
Yeah,
can everybody?
It's not coming through.
It's on my side, huh? Okay. All right. Let me ask you this, everybody. Can you guys? Let me ask the chat. They can help us out. Can you guys hear us in the chat? Can you hear me?
I'm gonna try a different phone. Okay, I'll call you back right now.
Sounds good. Okay, everybody in the chat. Let me know. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? We can hear both of you. Interesting. Okay. Okay, so they can, you guys, thanks a lot. You guys are going to have to let us know we're playing with this right now so you can hear both of us. But, okay, so I'm going to switch back. Let me go back to this. Audio. Wow, so you guys are hearing me fine. But so they can hear both of us. So let me ask you this. Can you hear us now? Can you hear me now? Okay. Everybody can hear me now. Let's get some Keith or somebody get back with me. Sorry about that. We're struggling a little bit. Somebody says I can hear you both. Greg Deep says CIA. Let's get some. Can you guys hear me? Can you in the chat? Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, great. So you guys can hear me. But audio is fine. That's what I thought. Yeah, we've been struggling this morning, struggling to get Laith on. We had him on, and then we got started. Got a couple of things crystal clear, beautiful. Just a couple of things while I'm getting Laith on. So what we've got going now is a number of things, not the least of which being the so-called Iran talks. And the question about the Iran talks is this, right? The question is not whether or not the Iranians can get a deal or can't get a deal, whether or not the issues can be worked out. To me, here's the question. Is the U.S. negotiating in good faith? And that's always the question, isn't it? The question whenever the U.S. says we're negotiating with country X, it's always the same thing. Are they negotiating in good faith? And usually the answer is no. And here's why it's obvious that they're not negotiating in good faith. Hopefully we'll get Laith back on very shortly. Here's why it's obvious. I mean, the question is why this time are they not negotiating in good faith? Well, this is an easy one. Recently, the United States intelligence said there was an intelligence assessment if you read it, it was just like neocon piece of crap. As always, that's all you're going to get out of Washington, D.C. is neocon garbage. But here's my point. The U.S. intelligence assessment said that Iran is not seeking to weaponize their nuclear program. That so Iran has a right to a nuclear program. They're using it for whether it's power. There's a lot of things you can use nuclear for, such as medical. Okay, we got Laith back, but the bottom line is the. So, can you hear me now?
Oh yes, I can hear you now.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I'll just finish what I was saying real quick, and that is, I was just mentioning to our audience about the so-called negotiations with Iran, and I said my position is pretty clear. As always, the answer is always the same. The U.S. is not negotiating in good faith, because a U.S. intelligence assessment just said like 3 weeks ago, the U.S. intelligence assessment, which was mostly crap, but part of it said Iran is not seeking to weaponize their nuclear program. So your own U.S. intelligence assessment says they're not seeking to weaponize their program, and then they said we've got to negotiate with Iran. Why? To stop them from weaponizing their nuke. We are afraid they could have a nuke anytime. It's like, are we supposed to just pretend that there were not articles all over the place? Are we supposed to pretend that we don't know that your own assessment said, and not just this time, it's been saying it every year since 2008. So for the past, 17 years, the intelligence assessment has said Iran's not trying to build a nuke. And your argument is we might have to go to war with Iran. Right. Why? To stop them from building a nuke. This is a clownish a foreign policy discussion in the United States, Laith. Your thoughts on that?
Yes. I mean, obviously, it's been decades that we're being told the Iranians are minutes away from finishing a nuclear weapon. And if that was true, they would probably have hundreds of nuclear heads by this point. So, I mean, in Arabic, we say, how do you know a lie? And it's how big it is. And in this case, there's no bigger lie than this. It's 20 years the same. It's like the shepherd there and the wolf. They keep on saying the wolf is here. Nobody now believes them. Even if Iran produces a nuclear weapon right now, nobody would believe it if the Americans prove that the Iranians have a nuclear weapon. And because these lies of the American shepherd have not only been about the Iranian wolf, they've been about the Syrian wolf, the Iraqi wolf, the Libyan wolf, and every time those lies were proven wrong. And so the United States has lost its own credibility at its own hands. Nobody needed to even fight this propaganda war for the Americans to lose it because of how ridiculous the propaganda of the United States has devolved into over the last 20 somewhat years.
Look at this. This is what they resorted to. This is probably 15 years ago, at least. And there we go. The final stage, 90%. The guy literally came out with a stupid looking picture of a bomb. It looked like something from the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. There's a picture of the Roadrunner, and here's Wile E. Coyote. I think he's going to eat the Roadrunner soon. So it comes out, and we're supposed to look at that. You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of Colin Powell with a vial that probably had like talcum powder in it or salt. See this white vial? Theoretically, it could represent symbolically. Why do you bring in a white vial to symbolically, theoretically represent something that you damn well know doesn't exist? They always got pictures of cartoonish bombs, white vials full of lies, and every single time, might I add, all you got to do is say, and this is the thing, the media never says this. Nobody in the back ever sticks their hand up and says, oh, excuse me, some questions, sir, about this whole Iran thing. Yeah. Didn't your own intelligence threat assessment 3 weeks ago just say they don't have one? So what the hell are we doing here? But nobody says that. Go ahead.
Colin Powell had some baby powder in that, and we know now how poisonous baby powder is. He was trying to warn the world, Colin Powell, but come on, what This is how bad the United States is in its propaganda, and it makes you kind of nostalgic to the propaganda of the 60s and 70s that was of much higher order. It's like the Hollywood movies right now are so bad in comparison to the high days of Hollywood in the 70s and 80s. And I know we're talking like old people with this gray beard. We're sounding like old men, but we're still young at heart, and we're revolutionary. So we're definitely going with the age.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You know what? Here's something I've noticed. As soon as they tell you it's conspiracy theories, or this is how I know that something is true, there's baseless accusations. Anytime it's like when someone says, "Hey, I think could COVID be possibly from a lab?" Baseless accusations that COVID could possibly have been created in a lab, and then they continue with the lie. Okay, it was created with a lab, but not in the United States. It was in Wuhan. I'm like, okay, there's always baseless accusations, or as Chris Hedges says, anytime a mainstream news article opens with a question, the answer is always no. No matter what it is. Is it possible that the Russians meant no? The answer is
No.
always no. All right, let's get going. Galilee, the so-called Christian country, right, that I'm sitting in. Everything's about Galilee. There's these Christian hymns about Galilee and all this kind of stuff. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of respect for, I don't know, I guess none of those people ever read like the Sermon on the Mount about blessed are the peacemakers. They must have missed that part of the Bible. For some reason, they missed that part of the Bible. But I understand that you were in Galilee. Tell us about your trip to Galilee, what was happening there and what you saw, etc.
Yes. So just to clarify for our viewers, the Galilee region is the mountain region in the north of Palestine and the south of Lebanon. And in Arabic, sometimes they call the area Jabal Amil. And so the northern end, the whole northern part, half of the Galilee is inside Lebanon in the south. And in this region is the village of Qana, the Qana of Galilee, where the wedding in the Galilee mentioned in the Bible happened. And for our Christian viewers, some of them may know, and the rest don't know. Mother Mary was invited to a wedding with her extended family relatives in the village of Qana, and she went with Jesus Christ and some of his disciples to this wedding. And in the middle of the wedding, while everybody's partying, they ran out of wine. And at that point, Jesus has not yet been, proclaimed as a prophet and or performed any miracles. But his mother Mother Mary asked him to do something to help the party not end there. And that's when he turned water to wine. So the first miracle that Jesus Christ brought us was turning this water into wine, and it happened in Qana, South Lebanon. And there I went and visited with Hadi Khlit, my colleagues from Free Palestine TV, on Saturday of Easter. And we visited the churches as well as the cave where Jesus and his disciples stayed that night. And for another point about Qana, Qana has been a target of multiple massacres committed by the Zionists because, of course, of this important religious connection to Christianity. The Zionists really hate anything in the lands here in Lebanon, Palestine, Syria that connects people to the historical record. So in 1996, there was the first massacre of Qana when the Zionists attacked the United Nations UNIFIL base, where all the residents in Qana and around it were hiding. This was during what they called the Grapes of Wrath operation, and 150 somewhat civilians were martyred in this attack, as well as 4 UN workers. And in 2006, the Zionists repeated this attack on Qana again attacking a shelter, and over 50 somewhat civilians were martyred there. In both times, at least half of the dead were children. And finally, during this latest war, Qana was attacked multiple times, and the downtown of the village, multiple neighborhoods were completely destroyed. You can watch all of this on our special report that we did for Easter about Qana on our website, freepalestine.video.
Well, here's what's interesting. On Google, no matter how much you search Galilee on the maps, it'll never take you to the Galilee in Lebanon. It doesn't exist. It'll show you Galilee in Pennsylvania, but it won't ever, you can't, you can find it anywhere. I'm looking at a map. Help me find it for those who may want to find it. All right. So we're trying to find, help me find, okay. Okay, what area are we?
Yeah, so if you put Qana, Qana, Lebanon, you probably will get it.
When I see Qana, I get it up here in Syria.
There's a different Qana there, but if you put Qana, comma, Lebanon, you should get it.
Okay, Qana, Lebanon. I'm going to search that. Yep, no. Let me see. Nope, doesn't show up. Qana in Lebanon does not exist on Google Maps.
Okay, so Google decided to completely erase it, it seems like. But if it's when you go to Saida on the coast, Saida coast in Lebanon, the big city south of Beirut, it's Sidon in English, probably.
Okay, so so here's Lebanon. Here's Beirut. Is it near?
So south of Beirut. South of Beirut.
Oh, there's Saida. That it right there.
Yes. So inland from Saida, if we zoom in right there, that's basically will be Qana is around there, and you can.
But it doesn't exist on this map. Yeah. Right. This map doesn't have it. Is it between Saida and Dibin? Is it in there somewhere?
Yes.
Well, apparently Qana does not exist. And that's the Galilee area also?
Yes. Everything south of that is the Galilee.
Doesn't exist.
It's a huge, geographic hill with a lot of hilltops on top of it that stretches from Nazareth in Palestine all the way to just north of Qana. This is called the Galilee and or Jabal Amil in Arabic, Al-Jalil. And so you could understand how the population of South Lebanon and North Palestine are actually one. They're the same, families and tribes. And this is a geographic region that they would move in. There is a valley from the Hula Valley in Palestine that goes all the way to Qana, and this is where the old Christians would walk in this valley. From there, that was the main road, basically. We also witnessed while we were there attacks on civilian car as we were arriving in Qana. 2 missiles were fired on a car. Look where I am here behind me. This is a natural reserve in the Iqlim al-Tufah, or the apple region, north of the Galilee. Yesterday, the Israeli Air Force fired the 3 missiles right there. You can see the hole in the mountain.
Yes.
Okay. And this is a very famous restaurant called Hawa Jarjua. This area is called Jarjua. And there was revelers here, coming for lunch. And, luckily the explosion did not throw anything on them, but there's a big valley here. So it's lucky that there's this valley exists, but it's for no reason. There's nothing militarily anywhere in here, but they decided to attack it anyways, the Zionists. And today, as we were driving to here also, there was another attack on the road, and we missed it by few minutes we were lucky to miss it. And this attack happened right outside a Lebanese military base, and the car was on fire coming down the hill, and it was hit by a second missile. And the man that was martyred is a university professor and was a member of the Islamic group, a Lebanese Sunni fighting militia that was involved in supporting Palestine during this war. So they clearly were searching for him, the Israelis, this whole time, and they assassinated him today. There was another attack just before we got on air on the coast in Sur, the tourist town on the Mediterranean. So the Israelis are not stopping their attacks. They're continuing on and on until, I guess, somebody forces them to stop.
Wow. Give us an update. So that's what's going. So the bottom line is this: the Israelis are at war with everybody in the region, and they just attack whoever they want, whenever they want. Excuse me, the U.S. empire through their proxies. The Israelis are at war with everybody in the region, but they're also at war with China, at war with Russia, at war with Iran. They're pretty much at war with everybody. It's a world war that the U.S. is, as it deteriorates and falls apart as an empire, just thrashes out in all directions. Let's talk about Yemen. I understand there's now some talk that the Saudis are fighting on behalf of the U.S. and Israel, bombing, that the UAE, that they're trying to put together some kind of a ground force to attack Yemen. They're continuing to bomb Yemen, but Ansar Allah is just not going to back down. What do we know about Yemen and the some of the Gulf states that seem to be now openly aligning with U.S. imperialism?
Yes, the American Air Force yesterday attacked another market in Sana'a city. This is the second market they attacked in 2 days, and multiple civilians were martyred. We saw videos of the families, picking up their wounded and dead. And as they're being filmed and interviewed in the streets of Sana'a, they are saying that their loved ones are a sacrifice for Palestine, that they are willing to sacrifice all their livelihoods and their life as Yemenis for the liberation of Palestine, for solidarity with the people in Gaza. And that shows you the conviction and the determination of the Yemeni people. So, a few hours after that attack, we heard a statement by the Yemeni military forces. Their spokesperson, General Syria, gave a statement saying that they targeted the aircraft carrier group of Truman.
Oh,
the other.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, the other aircraft carrier group in the Arabian Sea. And since the morning, we're seeing some videos of Saudi and Emirati pickup trucks with machine guns being gathered on the border with Yemen in the north, as well as in the areas that the Emirates occupies in South Yemen. So we can see the possibility of an attempted military ground invasion by the Emiratis and the Saudis of the sovereign territories under control of Sana'a. But the Emiratis and the Saudis have tried this for more than a decade. So I've been seeing tweets by Yemenis saying they're ready to receive the loot. All these new pickup trucks, brand new Toyota pickup trucks, are going to be all in the hands of the Yemenis the minute these militias and mercenaries that the Saudis and the Emiratis have hired go face to face with Ansarullah. They're going to run away and leave all this equipment for the loot.
Yeah, to me, it seems a sign of desperation. It seems to me that an acknowledgement that, we're going to bomb them and they're just going to stop and we're going to do shock and awe. It seems to me an acknowledgement that they're recognizing that no matter how much they bomb or whatever they do from the air, that it's never going to change. And that's my point. It seems an acknowledgement that what they're doing is having no effect.
Yes. And I think the generals within the American Navy that have been facing for the last year this battle with Yemen.
Oh, we've lost Laith for a second. Hopefully it comes right back. He's frozen a little bit. Hopefully we'll get Laith right back. Maybe he can. We're not hearing him. Well, I think one of the things that Laith was talking about here is the not just the ineffectiveness of U.S. Military attempts to take out Yemen, but additionally, I think the Yemen military's effectiveness technologically in going after U.S. ships. I believe that at some point in the distant future, maybe we will find out that the Yemen military, Ansar Allah, had a lot more success. So hopefully he'll be back in a second. I think we're going to find out that they had a lot more success in their attacks on U.S. Navy assets than we ever found out, than we were ever told. I believe that, we were constantly told, no, they're not having any effects, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's try Laith again. All right, there you go.
The reception in this area is not that great.
Yeah, continue what we're saying about U.S. Military Navy.
Yes. So the Navy, because of this experience over the last year and a half, they probably understand that this is an unwinnable war, and but we see them still being pushed into this losing fight, and I don't think the American ground forces, the Army, and or the the special forces would want to land in Yemen. They've seen what happened to Blackwater mercenaries and the Emirati, Sudani, Saudi mercenaries that attempted to face off with Ansar Allah. They were all slaughtered. There was hundreds of Blackwater mercenaries that died in Yemen over the last year and a half. So the American Army and the Navy SEALs, they will not want to put their soldiers in threat in a situation of a guaranteed losing war. So all that Trump is left with is just useless bombardment from air using the B-2 and the B-52 bombers stationed in the Diego Garcia island chain. He can't even depend on the jets taking off from the two aircraft carriers, because the aircraft carriers themselves are under constant bombardment by drones, winged missiles, meaning cruise missiles, and hypersonic missiles. So, and how much can the United States depend on B-2 and B-52s? Only, this is a very expensive possibility of projection. You look at what's going to cost them per day to fly these mega bombers. It is not worth it. So how long can the United States continue this? How much is Trump willing to spend on this losing war? Those are questions that the American public should be asking.
I think you're right. And I think the other thing is that they're bombing and they're utilizing, these missiles where the Yemenis are firing very inexpensive drones and missiles and things like that. The U.S., because of the nature of our military industrial complex, I mean, they may probably cost 50 or 100,000 to make the missiles, but they're going to sell it to the government for 2 million. So the U.S. is losing to Yemen both. I mean, in what we called some kind of a stalemate or standoff, the empire, all it can do is kill civilians. But militarily speaking, the trade-off, if every time I throw $100 at you, you have to spend $1 million to stop it, that's a war that you just lose financially and economically, and it weakens our military ability in the region, and it ties up our naval assets. And I believe that at some point we'll learn these ships got to hit. These Navy ships have been hit a lot more than we know. They're always saying they never touched us, they never hit us, but every now and then a picture will come out of like a U.S. Navy ship that's blackened in one area and looks like it's been hit. And I got a feeling they're getting hit a lot more than they're actually telling us.
Yes, they are getting hit a lot more. And one thing that the American Navy has been lucky about is that up until now, Yemen has not used warheads that are packed with high number or measure of explosives. And so we've seen, of course, the missiles of Yemen reach the Zionist colony, and we've seen the damage. The damage is not that much, but it is pinpoint. In that situation, this missile will not sink an aircraft carrier. So if Yemen decides to put bigger warheads on these missiles, then we will see these aircraft carriers sinking. But the more the weight of the warhead is, the slower the missile goes and the shorter the distance it can go. So that's probably the trade-off that Yemenis are having to deal with, and that's probably also why the American aircraft carrier groups are parked so far away from Yemen in the Red Sea and the Mediterranean, the Arabian Sea, because if they get closer, Yemen can then put bigger warheads on these missiles.
I think you're right. I also believe that Yemen has, and it's been said by the Iranians recently and Yemen, that Yemen has a lot more powerful weapons that they have elected not to use unless a regional war, a much more violent regional war broke out, that they would use some of their other weapons. One more thing before we leave Yemen: these MQ-9 Reaper drones, over the course of like 6 or 7 or 8 months, or I forgot how long it was, they shot down a few of them. They've been shooting them down just about every week or every other week. It seems like either they've increased their technical abilities through anti-air, or they've come up with new, methods of attacking them. But the U.S. is losing. It seems like now and these things are, I don't know, 100 million, whatever the hell they cost, a lot. They're losing these, it seems to me, like weekly, which, might I add, that's something they have to use in order to, because since they can't put people on the ground or whatever to fly and get a close-in view of what's going on to try to find targets, they have to use these MQ-9 Reaper drones because they don't have another option to get a real-time intelligence. And it looks like one of the things that's happening is they're not able to fly them as much, which makes it even harder for them to see what's happening in Yemen.
What's amazing about the Yemeni air defenses is that they actually have the old Chinese, North Korean, and Soviet air defense systems, like the Buk and the SAM. And with their own scientific development agency for their military, they upgraded these air defenses from the 70s and 80s and added other components to them and managed to take a hodgepodge of radars from other systems and merge them all together to work together, which is a technical achievement. And because the mountains of Yemen are so high, these air defense systems that wouldn't be able to shoot an MQ-9 from sea level are able to take down an MQ-9 from the top of the mountain. Of course, the reason we're seeing so many MQ-9s being shot down and being used by the US over Yemen is correctly, as you said, because they don't have people on the ground to give them the target coordinates and or monitor what is happening. And added to it, because the F-15s and F-16s do not want to fly over Yemen while they're shooting their missiles. So the drone acts as a guiding for the missile that is fired from an F-15 or F-16s over the Red Sea as the one that pinpoints what the target is going to hit. And that's why the U.S. is depending on them so much. Remember, the U.S. has a few hundred only of these MQ-9, and Yemen has shot down, I think, almost 20 of them over the course of the last year. And that's a huge bill. I think $30 million is the cost for each one of those. So we're past the $500 million of cost just from these MQ-9s that the Americans have wasted in this war.
I would suspect if we stop seeing these MQ-9s getting shot down, it's because the U.S. has stopped using them. That if they're not getting shot down, because now it appears that in a nutshell, Yemen has figured them out. They figured out how to shoot them down, what technology they need, what tactics. Larry Johnson, I spoke with him. He says he thinks they're using bait and bait, they'll put they'll put some fake launchers out. So the MQ-9 comes in to see the fake launchers, and then they turn the radar off and shoot them down. They just like put out bait them in, shoot them down, things like that. So I think they're using various tactics. It's interesting that we see a small country like Yemen really exposing the empire, really exposing them. Technology has changed the world, and they're exposing that you can no longer dominate. You can only kill civilians, but militarily now, the technological abilities, particularly if you look at what's happening in Iran, you look what's happening throughout the world, the technological base now is expanding, making things available that the U.S. just can't. All it did before was, we'll fly over and bomb you. They can still fly over and bomb civilians. But when it comes to winning a war, you're not going to do that. All you're going to do is just continue to do this for years and years and years. That's what they did in Yemen before, for a dozen years. And in the end, you lose anyway.
Yes, and now with the entry of artificial intelligence, AI, and all these drones, and the merger of these two technological schools, we're going to see things that we haven't seen yet. Of course, we don't know if Yemen and or Iran is going to use AI to coordinate drone swarms, for instance, or coordinate drones in the sea and on the ground. These are all going to, come out in whatever war expands in Yemen and or Iran. We will be seeing these surprises, and that's the beauty of the democratization of military technologies that is happening, not because the West wants to allow this, but because the rabbit is out of the hat now. There's no way you can put it back in, and much of humanity has access to these AIs and drones and technologies like that, and anybody can. And very soon we will be seeing personal armies of these swarms of drones. Probably drug lords are going to have them at some point. So things are, the way history's arc is curving right now is against large powers. It is balancing the differentiation between smaller players and larger players, and that's going to be a huge headache for any imperialist that wants to control the fate of humanity.
I certainly agree with you. I think the Saudis and the Emiratis, etc., the UAE, I think they're making an error, because the last time they tangled with Yemen, they had to stop and back off because Yemen started hitting their oil facilities and let them know, well, we're just going to flatten them all if you keep doing this. And they had to walk away. And now the U.S. is dragging them back into this, and I think they're putting their oil facilities in jeopardy again, because Yemen. The thing is, Yemen learned. They learned that we can strike your oil facilities, and you got to walk away. You can't take that, and they don't have to hit them all. They can just selectively hit one here and there, kind of like, as they call in baseball, a brushback pitch. They can throw an elbow, and I think we're moving in that direction again.
Can you imagine if Yemen takes out the electricity generators in the Emirates, where it's plus 50 degrees Celsius, and you have 9 million foreign workers that are not used to the weather and living all the time in the air conditioner? Those 9 million will run away just because they don't have air conditioners. You don't have to hit anything else in the Emirates to collapse it, to bring it back into nothingness. Just cut the electricity, and 9 million people will run away, these foreign workers, which is not a country. Can you imagine a country with 1 million indigenous and 9 million foreign workers? What kind of country is that?
It's like Rome, where, what was it, 3 slaves to every 1 citizen in Rome? That's what you're looking at in an empire, only 3 times Rome. The truth of the matter is, the slaves in Rome probably had more rights, actually, than the foreign workers do in those countries, who have none. Yemen, update on, I know there's a lot of terrible things going on in Yemen. The West is trying to legitimize this lunatic ISIS guy who rules, supposedly, he doesn't rule Yemen. who is the puppet for the U.S. and Israel, who's now saying, as Israel takes parts of Syria, bombs wherever they want to, and he's saying, well, I think we need to normalize relations with with Israel, normalize relations with Israel. He's obviously and clearly a puppet. Your thoughts?
Yes, this morning we saw a statement by Palestinian Islamic Jihad, who had their headquarters in Damascus, that the head of Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Syria was kidnapped by the Julani forces, along with one of the leaders of the militia of PIG in Syria. It's happened 5 days ago, but PIG decided to stay quiet about it, try to negotiate something with the Julani. But obviously, Trump and Israel are pressuring him to end the presence of any Palestinian fighters on Syrian territory as the bargaining chip for lifting the siege and sanctions of Syria, which is not going to happen, honestly. Even if he hands over every Palestinian, they're not going to lift the sanctions off Syria because they don't want Syria to recover. Because if Syria recovers financially and the people psychologically recover, it will be back again as the leader in the region, as it geography entails that Damascus is the most important city in the region. Geography entails that Syria and it births the philosophers and the doctors and the engineers and the culture producers in the region. So this is something that the Israelis will never allow to happen, as well as the Americans behind them. So, the kidnappings continue, specifically of girls and women in the coast. I was just watching a video, it broke my heart. These, militias, Wahhabi death squads that work with Julani sent a video of a woman that they had kidnapped and they've been gang raping her for a couple of weeks now, sent a video to her husband with her totally bloodied, telling him that they're going to be killing her as soon as they're finished with her. So this is hundreds upon hundreds of girls and women, Christian, Shia, Alawi, Druze, that have been kidnapped in the 4 provinces in the coast. Some of them are being sold as slaves in Idlib, as the Turkish military is just sitting and watching in front of their eyes these slave markets of Syrian women. And the major religious figures in the country that have been trying to push for more coexistence, less harm to the civilians, trying not to confront Julani and the HTS, they have now become also victims. We saw the former Mufti of Syria, whose son was killed by al-Julani's gang, before the fall of the Assad government a few years ago. His son was a student at university, and they killed him in the middle of the university. At that time, the Mufti of Syria forgave these terrorists, even when they were arrested and thrown in jail. He went to the jail. There's a very famous video of him forgiving them and asking the government for them to be released. What they did to him now is they gave him the right to leave the country, and the minute he went to the airport, they nabbed him, they put him in blindfolds, and they filmed him as if he was trying to run away from the country, and nobody has seen him since. Similarly, the very famous Christian nun in Syria, Mother Agnes, who's been documenting all these kidnappings, disappearances, and killings in the coast, has now went into hiding because there's a arrest warrant and an award for her captured, dead or alive, been issued by al-Julani and his gang. So the situation continues to deteriorate in Syria. Nobody is looking. The media in the West is not covering it, of course, because this is their man that they convinced the whole population in the West to support. But yeah, it's a sad situation in Syria, and I don't see how this is gonna end anytime soon.
What do you what's the situation with the Kurds? The Kurds, have for years made a deal with the devil. I know there's various Kurdish groups, but they made a deal with the US, the devil, all the time, thinking that at some point the US would take Syria and give them their Kurdish homeland, which they would get an autonomous region of Kurdish, blah, 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 blah. And of course, it hasn't worked out. That never, ever, you make a deal with the devil, it's never going to work out. What's up with the Kurds?
Yes, I mean, they are definitely very worried now. We can see the Trump announcement that he's going to withdraw some of the troops from Syria, which I don't believe either. But this has shaken the ground under the Kurdish militias in the northeast. They are trying to get as close as possible to Al-Julani. They've been meeting almost on a weekly basis, and preliminarily agreed to merge these militias, Kurdish militias, with the Syrian army under Julani's control, but we haven't seen any movement on that. They're trying to get close to Julani because Julani is close to Erdogan, to see if maybe they can negotiate something with Al-Julani that Erdogan will agree to. But if the Kurdish Contras find themselves with no American cover in northeast Syria, no matter how many deals they did with Al-Julani, they will be slaughtered. And the Turkish military will enter those areas to avenge, of course, the losses they had of Turkish soldiers over the years.
Yeah, they'll be in trouble because the Turks will come in to slaughter them. And of course, Jelani's people will come in to slaughter them just because that's what they do. And the US, again, you make that deal with the devil. All this time hoping that one of these days they were going to get a Kurdish homeland if they just did what the US told them to do. They weren't paying attention in northern Iraq when they made the deal back in the 1990s and they got slaughtered. And now they're making a deal. And at some point, as you said, when the UN, because they've worked for the US, and if the US said do this, they did that. So they made enemies everywhere. They have surrounded themselves with enemies. I used to interview this guy from Kurdistan.org, and he was in charge, in the US, and he said, "Oh, we just want our homeland and blah blah blah." And I would ask him, "Yeah, but you want to take part of somebody else's homeland to be your homeland?" "Well, we just think that it would be peaceful and blah blah blah." And I, back then, this was 2017, and I would say to them, "You're making a deal with the US guy. It's not going to work out well. You haven't learned your lesson. One of these days, you're going to pay dearly for this." And it looks like that day is coming. And the Turks, here's the sad thing. In my opinion, the Turks and the Yolani people will kill every one of them. And the ones they don't kill, they'll take for slaves. Every one of them. Merciless, without mercy.
Oh, yes. We've seen over the last week the Kurdish militias begin to release quote-unquote ISIS prisoners and ISIS families. And I think for them, they were hoping two things. One, that ISIS maybe fight with Al-Julani. The other, that if they don't fight, at least Al-Julani would say that they released his ex-buddies. Because remember, Al-Julani was the second in command in ISIS under al-Baghdadi before he changed the fatigues and colors. So, they're playing a dangerous game, because at any moment, obviously, these ISIS that they're releasing could also turn them. And we've seen this morning, I've seen videos of the Uyghur members of ISIS and their families, and even these Uyghur bastard children of all the sex slaves that the Canadian special intelligence and the British special intelligence provided all these women to ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria to rape. So I've seen these videos of these hundreds of these bastard Uyghur children and the ISIS families, specifically Uyghur ones, that are being released by the Kurds in northeast Syria. And that's, again, all of this is like putting your hand in a viper's nest and hoping that you're not going to get bitten. And it's really stupid strategic thinking, if you can call it strategic.
Last thing I wanted to ask you about is Iraq. What is there any? I'm not hearing anything about Iraq, and I know they're caught in the middle of the whole Iran thing. They don't want the U.S. there, but the U.S. is looting all of their oil money and giving them a pittance to just be able to survive on. What are your thoughts on what's happening in Iraq? I know there's the PMUs there. What's going on with Iraq?
Yes, the biggest story in Iraq right now, there's two big stories. One is the president and prime minister of Lebanon. We're talking about disarming Hezbollah and or merging them with the Lebanese military. And they use the PMU, Popular Mobilization Units, in Iraq as a model because the PMUs got merged into the Iraqi military and they're part of the Ministry of Defense. But at the same time, the stupid prime minister here of Lebanon called the PMU a armed militia that is outlaw, basically militia, and that triggered a reaction in Iraq from the PMU, from the Ministry of Defense of Iraq, all the way to the prime minister of Iraq. And what ended up happening is Iraq recalled its ambassador from Baghdad. There's now Lebanon depends on Iraq for its oil and gasoline. Iraq has been gifting free oil and gasoline to Lebanon over the last 2.5 years, almost 3 years. So this is threatening the Lebanese economy, the stupid mouth of the prime minister here. And at the same time, there's supposed to be, the second big story in Iraq right now is that there's supposed to be an Arab League meeting in Baghdad next week, and Al-Jolani has been invited by the Arab League to sit in the seat of the president of Syria in this Arab League. And of course, because Al-Jolani was the second in command of ISIS during the slaughter in Iraq, he's still wanted in the country. There's arrest warrants for him, and he's responsible for the death of thousands upon thousands of Iraqis. So members of the Iraqi parliament sent an order to the president and the prime minister to arrest Jolani when he touches ground in Baghdad. So now there's two possibilities. Either the president and the prime minister of Iraq defy the parliament and the courts and allow Jolani to come in, and or Jolani will not come to the country. These are the biggest stories in Iraq today.
Well, before we go, I want everybody once again to see if I can figure out what I'm doing. Oh, here we go. The important website. Sorry, we got a little screwed up in the beginning, so we couldn't necessarily do it. FreePalestine.video. That's Laith's website. You can see it right now, all of the video there. You got latest episodes, you got field reports, military operations, and of course, very important, donate. That's right. You can donate one time or monthly to help fund the community television station. So they bring you live information from the war for the liberation of Palestine. So you've got all kind of stuff, military operations, all kind of videos there. There's a lot that you can see, but make sure you go to freepalestine.video. Make sure that you share it on all your social media platforms if you can afford it. Hopefully you can. Make sure you donate and become a monthly donor if you can afford it. But whether you can or not, share it on all your social media platforms. Follow them on all the social media platforms that they can. Look, you saw, I just showed you that today, Google. You search Google, there's no Galilee on Google. Google, I don't know if people have been paying attention recently. They showed that Google hired 100 people who are former IDF. Well, the story should have been 100 more that are already IDF to work with the thousands who are already there. It's interesting when you look at Google. Google just came up with this thing called Google Scholar. It's supposed to be like a LexisNexis search. It is just pure propaganda. Everything that Google does is pure, propaganda for the Zionist empire. Simple as that. You can't. People are like, Google it. I'm like, don't even use Google as a verb. You might as well be saying U.S. empire it. You might as well be calling. You might as well be calling the CIA and say, "Hey, CIA, what are your thoughts on this?" Because that's what you're going to get. Thanks a lot, Ray. All
Garland,
right.
see you soon, Habibi. Bye bye.
All right, everybody. Share this on all your social media platforms. Peace. We're out.